I never had that modeled for me. I don't have parents that are entrepreneurs. I don't have a business degree. I didn't have corporate money. I basically learned with a Google search bar and just like curiosity. So I opened the first studio I opened, I put in a $2,400 investment.
All right. So I'm super excited to have Christa Gurka here from Pilates in the Grove. So Christa, welcome to your first fireside chat with BFS.
Thanks, Jessica. I'm so happy to be here.
To get started, I would love if you could just tell us in the audience a little bit about your background and how Pilates in the Grove got started to begin with.
Yeah, I'd love to tell you a little bit about my background. I like to say that I'm an accidental entrepreneur because I never thought that that was in the cards for me. By degree, I'm a physical therapist, and I was working in a physical therapy clinic where we did a lot of Pilates. It was a Pilates-based clinic, and we had all this clientele when they were done with therapy that we were sending to different studios around the area. And I just thought, this is really so silly. We have all of this built-in clientele and we are giving to other studios. And I just thought it was silly. So I mentioned it to my boss and I said, I think this is something. And I think it was probably around the time that I was looking just to maybe level up a little bit, do something a little different. I didn't think he was going to say, open your own studio. So at the time he said, I think you're right. Do you want to open a studio? And I was like, I guess. So, and then a patient of mine who was very ingrained in the community said, this would be amazing. We don't have anything here. I would love to be your partner. So my very first studio, we opened across the street from my clinic. It was probably 500 square feet. And it was mostly like, I don't know if you remember these, they still have them a lot in Manhattan, where you used to have the retail, business downstairs, and they'd have the little apartment upstairs that the people, the owners would live in. Yeah. That's kind of how it was. So there was a bakery downstairs and there was this little upstairs. It for sure used to be an apartment. And I put borrowed reformers in there and a Cadillac, and that's how it started. Wow. And I was still working full time at my studio, at my clinic. Fast forward 3 years, we expanded that location to a larger location, and I eventually left my clinic altogether. And then fast forward a year after that, we expanded into a second location. And now this is location number 3. And in the interim, I ended up dissolving that partnership and just growing Pilates in the Grove on my own as a solopreneur. And that's basically like in a nutshell how it started. So the first studio opened in 2008.
Okay. And I didn't warn you I was going to ask about this, but hearing that story. So, I mean, when you and I first talked months ago, when you told me the revenue that you generate in your studios, I was impressed. So now you were a physical therapist. How did you go about learning how to run a business? Because you are a smart businesswoman.
Thank you. Thank you. I know. I remember. It's funny because not a lot of people do. And I've been in coaching and masterminds and a lot of times I get, and I don't think maliciously at all. I just think people think Pilates studio or not on a national brand. And they're like, well, you're probably what, like 300 or 400. I was like, no. So that's why I say that I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I never had that modeled for me. I don't have parents that are entrepreneurs. I don't have a business degree. I didn't have corporate money. I basically learned with a Google search bar and just like curiosity. So I opened the first studio I opened, I put in a $2,400 investment. Wow. That was my investment, $2,400. Wow. So fast forward 12 years, we are well into the 7 figures, and I've invested in my business all on my own. I have no outside capital, no venture money, no investors. Everything has been very organic. And when I first started, I didn't know the first thing about business. I mean, when I tell you I didn't know anything, I didn't know what an operating agreement was. And I thank God that a friend of mine really said you need one because you have partners. And I was like, no, it's fine. And thank God, because we ended up having a dissolution. And without that agreement, it would have been really tough.
Yeah.
I think what makes me a good therapist, I would say, is that I'm very analytical and I really love the puzzle of things. And like if you came and were like, I'm having this weird back pain, I just love that. And so the business side of it was just curiosity, like, how can I make this bigger? How can I? And it was never about the money, I would say. It was about so many people would tell me, I feel so much better. I love coming here. I feel happy. This is the best part of my day. And that's addicting. And I wanted to create more of that for people and show people they don't have to live with pain. They don't have to feel like they can't try something new or play tennis into their 80s. Or as a female mom, and by the way, when I started my business, I had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and that a mom could create a legacy for her kids and be able to send them to school and private school and college funds and all of that stuff. And so that's kind of how it started. I mean, and then I started the venture over 12 years has been a lot. Like I didn't come out of the box like this for sure. And I just learned. And then I finally started realizing I wanted to be in the room with people like me. And then I started joining masterminds. I did eventually get business coaching. At first, I thought if I get coaching, everyone's going to know that I'm a fraud and they'll know that I don't know anything about business. So I can't get coaching because then people will know that I have no idea what I'm doing. And then I realized that's such backwards thinking. So once I started doing that and I started getting people explain numbers to me and profit margins, and don't just set your prices based on what your person next door is setting them on, right? And how to hire and all of these things. And by the way, most of the people that you reach out or that I reached out to ask for help were really very happy to offer it.
I think it's hard for a lot of fitness entrepreneurs or business owners. You were talking about the addictiveness of helping people feel better. And so I think that so often becomes the focus is your product and your workout or your modality, and your expertise in that becomes the passion and the drive. So what is there something that really made you realize that also this business side of it was super important and start seeking out the knowledge on that side, like you were saying with the mastermind, different groups and the business coach and everything?
Right. I mean, definitely. So, and I think 100% most business owners who are in the fitness realm, and so what they do is the product, right? They have that challenge. And I started seeing people that were closing left and right. They weren't successful. And it's because not in physical therapy school, not in Pilates training, not in yoga training, do they ever teach you anything about business. They just give you some education. They're like, okay, go do your thing. So I realized that my why was still to help people. But in order for me to help more people, my business had to be successful. So in order for me to create larger spaces or expand into different locations, and also I had a big why to hire people and have other women. My workforce is primarily female, but we do have some men, but employ women in a position, in a career that was lucrative and something they love to do and they could have an impact on. So I realized that it's still business, even though it's my baby. And I realized that in order for me to continue this and have the impact that I wanted to have, I needed to learn to make it a successful business.
Hey everybody, Jessica LaChance here. Do you want more business education for your fitness studio or wellness business? Subscribe to our YouTube channel or our email newsletters, and we'll see you here soon.